In 1984, the body of Donna Lanier was discovered by fishermen in Potato Creek, in South Bend, Indiana. 5 years prior, Donna's mother was murdered in her South Bend home. The man suspected of her murder, Reginald Purnell, was murdered 2 days after her death. All 3 cases are unsolved. On the afternoon of May 20, 1984, 2 fishermen in South Bend, Indiana discovered the body of 28-year-old Donna Husband, aka Donna Lanier, in a shallow section of Potato Creek. Donna's nude body was found lying face down in the creek. Her hands were bound behind her back with nylon stockings. She had been severely beaten, manually strangled, and then tossed from the Indiana 4 overpass above, into the creek. Donna was found wearing multiple pieces of jewelry. A black leather jacket belonging to Donna was found nearby, with a pin on it that read "Good girls go to heaven, bad girls go everywhere." Donna was last seen by friends standing at the intersection of Broadway and Michigan Street in South Bend around 3:30 a.m. on May 20, where she often worked as a prostitute. Unfortunately, Donna was not the first person in her family to be murdered. On October 20, 1979, Donna's mother, Eloise Husband, was shot in the head at her home. Police believe they may have found a suspect in the case, a 23-year-old man named Reginald Purnell. Unfortunately, only 2 days after Eloise's death, Reginald was shot to death. Both Eloise and Reginald's cases are still unsolved. 2 years prior to Eloise's death, in 1977, someone attempted to burn down the 2-story family home where Eloise and 11 other members of the family were sleeping. They had to climb out of an upstairs window, onto the roof, where firefighters rescued them. Hours before the fire, police had been dispatched to the same area in response to 2 men fighting. One of them told police he was going to burn down the house. They believe the fire, that was started in the garage and quickly spread to the house, was the result of a family dispute. Donna, too, experienced a devastating fire. In February of 1979, when one of Donna's 4 children were playing with a lighter, they accidentally caught a mattress on fire. The fire quickly engulfed the small apartment and the family lost everything. Prior to her death, Donna had 4 arrests for prostitution, including 1 charge of soliciting an undercover police officer in 1980. While working as a prostitute, Donna was beaten up and robbed multiple times. In one particular instance, she was knocked to the ground, held at knife point, and robbed. No arrests were ever made for the murders of Donna Lanier, her mother Eloise Husband, or Reginald Purnell. Southwest Missouri woman missing 48 years. Christine Anna Seal, age 22, vanished from Mount Vernon, Missouri on June 19, 1972. Christine's husband, Lynn, stated that he left for work at approximately 8 a.m., while Christine and her toddler son, David, were still asleep. At 9:30 a.m., the mailman came by, noting the little boy standing alone just inside the screen door. At 9:45 a.m., her husband stopped back by the residence, finding their son in the kitchen crying, but was unable to locate Christine. Her purse and other personal belongings remained in the home, though a nightgown appeared to be missing. A tracking dog followed her scent to a spot on the property behind the family car. It was theorized that she must have gotten into a vehicle, as the scent was lost at that point. Christine's parents had seen Christine, Lynn and little David on Father's Day, which fell the day prior to her disappearance. They had all gone on an outing to Table Rock Lake. They learned she was missing the next morning, when Lynn Seal called, asking if Christine had gone there. Christine, along with her husband and son, lived in a mobile home on a dairy farm, about 1.5 miles outside of Verona. The farm also employed Lynn, so it was not uncommon for him to stop at home during breaks. She worked as a cosmetologist at Wayne's, a nearby salon. Although Christine and Lynn struggled financially, there was no indication that there were marital problems. Friends of the couple did point out, however, that Lynn's father, Carl Seal, had a reputation as a strict disciplinarian, and Christine was afraid of him. In spite of this, nobody witnessed the same propensities from Lynn. Carol Blades, another cosmetologist, was murdered in Nixa, Missouri in 1969. Investigators looked into the possibility of the 2 cases being connected, but were unable to substantiate the theory. There is a book about Carol's case. The day after Christine's disappearance, an elderly brother and sister in nearby Youngville were assaulted and robbed after their home was broken into by 2 men in white hoods. This led police to wonder if robbery may have been the motive. However, nothing appeared to be missing from Christine's home. A witness would later report that his car had gotten a flat tire in front of Lee Church, northwest of Verona. As he was changing the tire, he heard a loud noise, and walked up to the front door to investigate. He stated that as he opened the front door, he saw a nude woman run out the rear door. He watched her run over a ridge, disappearing from his sight. He believed the woman he saw was Christine, but this tip has never been verified. Items found inside the church suggested someone had been there for a while. Christine and her younger brother Bruce grew up in a military family, and spent most of their childhoods being shuffled from one base to the next. They settled in Cassville, Missouri as Christine approached high school. She began a relationship with Lynn during high school, and they married in 1968, just after she graduated. Christine has been described as sensitive. A coworker at the salon recalled their boss being abrasive, and that Christine would end up in tears when the woman reprimanded her. Lynn Seal filed for divorce 2 years after her disappearance. He remarried, and his new wife adopted Christine's son, David. David does not have any memory of his mother, or of that fateful day, but he does not believe his father had any involvement in her disappearance. What happened to Christine Seal?
We also like to say that Scratch is one of the best sites to code, and I'd wish for Scratch to grow in the future.
33-year-old Jeremy Burt was putting his life back together. After an affair with his lawyer, his wife, Kim, filed for divorce and the two went their separate ways, though they were forever bonded through their young daughter. Jeremy regretted his mistakes and worked hard to make amends and regain Kim's trust. After his lawyer tried to coerce him into lying under oath in an attempt to frame her assistant, Jeremy recorded their conversations and testified against her in front of the grand jury. While his ex-lawyer, and former girlfriend, served a year in prison, Jeremy and Kim reconnected and began to repair the damage to their relationship. In February of 2007, they were living together and talking about future possibilities. Unfortunately, his old girlfriend had gotten out of prison and was pressuring Jeremy to come back to her. While Kim was in Las Vegas, for a work seminar, Jeremy spent the weekend with family back in his hometown of American Falls, Idaho. Upon returning, on Sunday evening, Jeremy spoke with Kim and then told his father he was going to meet a friend. He never came back. A series of bizarre texts were sent to Kim's cell phone, from Jeremy's phone. They alleged that he was moving on with his life, leaving town and planning to start a new life under a new identity. It made no sense, and Jeremy might leave Kim, but he would never leave his family, or his beloved daughter. Unfortunately, since the texts were from Jeremy's phone, and he was an adult, there was little police could do. However, when Kim reported that he'd left in her car, they did file reports about her missing vehicle. After several strange events, Kim's car was discovered 3 months later. It had been abandoned in the desolate Bruneau Desert, 100 miles south of Boise, and it had been set ablaze. Little evidence could be recovered from the scene, but this disturbing find finally caused the Boise Police Department to launch an official investigation. Jeremy Burt was last seen on February 11, 2007. 96 days later, the vehicle he had driven off in, his ex-wife's Mercury Cougar, was discovered abandoned and torched in the Bruneau Desert in southwest Idaho. The discovery of the car caused the Boise Police Department to officially launch an investigation into his disappearance. During the course of the investigation, they examined his bank and phone records, revealing details about his final moments and the days after he vanished. His ex-wife, Kim, who he had been dating again at the time, married another man shortly after Jeremy disappeared, raising many suspicions. His former girlfriend, and ex-lawyer, Jeannie Braun, became a person of interest for almost everyone associated with the case, but was there more to the story? Let me just say, when I saw the disappeared episode, I felt so bad for Jeremy's ex-wife, Kim George. I didn't picture her doing this at all. Only suspect I had was Braun, Jeremy's ex-girlfriend. I feel terrible for bringing this up if I'm wrong in my suspicions, however these facts were left out. Kim remarried just weeks after Jeremy disappeared. She remarried a good friend of Jeremy's. They remarried before her car, which Jeremy took, was found burned out in a remote area 3 months later. Even before Braun came into the picture, Kim and Jeremy had an intense love-slash-hate relationship. It's been described as a roller coaster by friends/family. The family has disputed Kim's timeline of when reported her car missing. The police stated she wasn't fully cooperative. Jeremy was recording their conversations during this reconciliation. It's suggested he was doing this in case of a custody battle. Jeremy's laptop was wiped clean and the only two people with access to it was Jeremy's father and Kim. Although it's possible Jeremy could have wiped it before he disappeared. Kim was reluctant to give police his laptop. Jeremy's family and friends have disputed Kim's version how of their reconciliation was going. Now, I'm well aware Jeremy could have been lying to Kim out of an obligation to be with the mother of his child. However, his family/friends dispute Kim's version that their reconciliation was going well. Kim claimed Jeremy did not want to meet her out in Vegas during her business trip. Once again, Jeremy's loved ones dispute that. They said Jeremy wanted to meet up with her in Vegas for a quasi-romantic getaway, but she was the one who told him not to come, claiming he would be bored while she attended business conferences during the day. While it makes sense that if Braun was pretending to be Jeremy when she texted Kim stating Jeremy was leaving her, it's odd that she would engage in that amount of text messages back and forth. Not to mention, why would Braun randomly pick up the cell phone, let out a sigh and hang up? Also, not one text was sent to any other person close to Jeremy. We only have Kim's word that the caller picked up and sighed. Jeremy used the phrase "Why are you so cute?" to his daughter, which was stated in his text messages to Kim when he claimed he was leaving. It's plausible Braun could have known that, but she had been in jail for a year and had only briefly seen Jeremy since she was released. It's possible, at some point, Jeremy told Braun this information about what he says to his daughter, but it seems a bit too intimate for an old affair that had been in jail for a year to know. To me, that's something only Kim and possibly Jeremy's parents/close friends would know. Sadly, Kim George committed suicide in July 2016. When I first heard, I felt terrible. I thought Jeremy's vanishing led her to kill herself. It's totally plausible. However, Kim not only had Mackenzie but a younger daughter with her husband, whom she remarried right after Jeremy's disappearance. She was also still married to Jeremy's good friend. I realize suicide is not logical at all, but this could point in either direction. Anyways, I wish Disappeared would actually include all information. Not just what the interviewee sets limits on. The podcaster from Trace Evidence was quite surprised when he dug deeper into this case and just how much the Disappeared episode only seemed to have a singular focus. The podcaster also said Disappeared has a reputation for slanting the narrative based on who agrees to be interviewed. Another example of this is the episode of Joey Lynn Offit. Her on and off again boyfriend, Alexis Brolin Jr., was interviewed and portrayed as a saint. In reality, he had a lengthy criminal record prior to her disappearance, had no alibi or steady employment, and in 2020, he was arrested as part of a large-scale meth distribution gang in PA. He's facing life in prison. While there remains a possibility Braun is responsible, of course, it's just good to know all the information. Kim is just as suspect to me now, knowing all the information. Both had motive, and it's likely whoever did this had help. Whether it was Jeremy's good friend, who married Kim just a few weeks later, or Braun having someone help her, it's highly probable more than one person knows. The mystery of the New Zealand moose. Do they still exist? New Zealand has a very unique ecosystem. Like Australia, it split off from the great southern continent of Gondwanaland millions of years ago, but unlike Australia, it is not dominated by marsupials. Indeed, New Zealand has no native land mammals, only aquatic mammals like seals and 2 species of bat. Prior to the arrival of Polynesians in around 1300, and British colonization in the 1800s, the country was, and still largely is, dominated by bird life. When the British seriously began colonizing New Zealand, there was a desire to turn it into something of a hunter's playground full of big game. Today, this is certainly the case, with species of deer, pig, and wallaby being well established across the country. But another species was also introduced, the Canadian moose. 2 attempts were made to introduce the species in 1900, which is believed to have failed, and again in 1910. They were introduced to a region called Fiordland, which is a largely unpopulated and undeveloped mountainous region at the very southern tip of New Zealand. The second introduction, consisting of 4 bulls and 6 cows, was at least initially successful. The last proven sighting of a New Zealand moose was in 1952, confirmed by a photograph, over 40 years since the last introduction, which is why the introduction was deemed successful. Since 1952, no conclusive photographic evidence of a New Zealand moose has been presented, despite numerous trail camera efforts. On the other hand, non-photographic evidence of their continued existence in Fiordland is rather abundant. A relatively fresh moose antler was found in 1972. In 1995, a blurry possible moose was photographed by a trail camera. Hair collected in 2002 was confirmed by DNA to be moose hair, along with frequent signs of moose activity, bedding/broken branches/etc. The DNA evidence is strong, but it begs the question of how an animal as large as a moose has avoided detection in a region which is frequented by many hunters every year. If the New Zealand moose indeed still exists, it supports the idea that very large animals like the Tasmanian tiger can remain undetected for many decades despite inhabiting areas frequented by hunters and outdoorsmen.